Antwerp. 1611. A world where art is a language of power, locked away from view. And yet, look closely at this painting. Do not search for the signature on the canvas. Look for it in the reflection of this silver cup. There, in a tiny bubble of metal barely a few millimeters wide, stands a woman with brushes and palette before an easel. Her name is Clara Peeters. And she has been hiding in plain sight for 400 years. Today we are going to decode her. Welcome to the Brush Chronicles, the channel where we decode the secrets the great masters concealed within their works. Today I bring you one of the most fascinating cases in the entire history of Western art. A case of silent insurrection. Of camouflaged genius. A woman who could not sign her work in any conventional way, and so invented her own signature system. A system so sophisticated that the Prado Museum took 4 centuries to dedicate its first solo exhibition to a female painter. That woman was Clara Peeters. In the next few minutes we will travel to the heart of Flemish Baroque art. We will discover why her still lives are not simple arrangements of objects, but political manifestos painted in oil on oak panel. We will speak of alchemy, status, Vanitas, solidarity among women artists, and the ultimate victory of art over oblivion. Stay with us, because you will not find any of this in a textbook. Let us start from the beginning. From Antwerp. Imagine a city at the height of its commercial boom. The early 17th century. The port of Antwerp is the most important in the known world. The spices of the East Indies, Chinese silk, gold from the Americas, porcelain from the Ming dynasty, all of it flows through here. The city is wealthy, cosmopolitan, hungry for art and display. And in this context there flourishes a genre of painting that will revolutionize the history of art. The still life. Objects on a table. It sounds modest. It sounds minor. And yet, in the hands of the Flemish masters, the still life became the most sophisticated battlefield in European art. Now, to understand Clara Peeters, we need to understand the rules of the game she was playing. In the 17th century, the guild system of painters controlled absolutely who could practice art professionally. And women were excluded from that system. They could not study anatomy from live models. They could not access the great academies. They could not aspire to paint grand historical, religious or mythological scenes. Those were the noble genres. The prestigious genres. The genres reserved for men. Women were granted, with condescension, the portrait and the still life. The little corner. The space of lifeless objects. But what nobody expected, absolutely nobody, was that a woman named Clara Peeters would turn that little corner into her fortress. About her personal life we know very little. She is estimated to have been born in Antwerp around 1588. Her earliest works date from 1607 and 1608, and show the style of someone still learning the trade. Her most productive period is concentrated in 1611 and 1612. Then, in 1621, she stops dating her paintings. And the trail goes cold. We do not know for certain if she married. We do not know if she had children. We do not know if she died young or old. There is a reference to her death in The Hague around 1657, but it is not conclusive. What we do know is that, at the height of her activity, her works were sold through dealers in Rotterdam, Amsterdam and Madrid. She was an artist with commercial success in a market dominated by men. And she achieved this without being registered in any guild. Without having a painter father to open doors for her. Without belonging to the nobility that funded other female artists of her time. Clara Peeters emerged as an entrepreneurial spirit who trained perhaps with external masters such as Osseous Bert. And that absence of any artistic family background makes her success all the more extraordinary. How did she do it? That is exactly what we are going to discover. I said that Clara Peeters did not paint food. And I stand by that. Clara Peeters painted a bank account. Allow me to explain. In the 17th century, the objects that appear on her tables were not decoration. They were declarations of power. Every chosen element was a coded message for the buyer: this is what I am, this is what I have, this is what I am worth. Think about the artichokes. Today you can buy them at any market for very little. But in 1600 they were an exotic luxury. They came from afar. They were attributed aphrodisiac properties. To have them on the table was a declaration of sophistication and of access to the extraordinary. Think about the fish. Peeters was an absolute pioneer in this regard. Before her, nobody dared give a herring or a freshwater crayfish the starring role. It was considered material too humble for a serious painting. She changed that. Why did she do it? Because capturing the moist gleam of a fish scale, the iridescent shimmer of a fresh herring, the translucency of a crab's legs, was a master's ultimate test. It was the maximum technical demonstration. It was saying, I am capable of making the unreal real. I can paint it so well that you can almost smell it. And then there were the oysters. The shellfish. The prawns. A whole parade of treasures from the sea which, in her time, only the most prosperous elite could regularly afford. But if there is one object that best sums up Peeters' ambition, it is Chinese porcelain. Specifically, the porcelain of the Ming dynasty. That ceramic in celadon green, or blue and white, which crossed oceans and continents before arriving on a Flemish table. At the time, Europe had not yet uncovered the secret of its manufacture. It was an object of extreme luxury. To own a piece of Ming porcelain was like owning a vintage car or a piece of haute couture jewelry today. And Clara Peeters painted it. She placed it on her table. And by painting it she was telling her client, your taste is exquisite. Your circle is the most cultivated in Antwerp. And I, your painter, am worthy of representing it. There is a concept that art historians call pictorial alchemy. And it describes exactly what Peeters did. She took basic pigments, ground minerals, and transformed them into gold, into silver, into imperial ceramics, into blown glass, into silk. Materials of no value becoming representations of the most precious things in existence. That is alchemy. That is magic. And that was Clara Peeters. She did not merely paint. She managed the marketing of Baroque luxury. Now I want you to focus on one specific object. An object that appears in Peeters' work with an almost obsessive insistence. The silver knife. In the 17th century, bringing your own knife to a banquet was a common practice among the affluent classes. The knife was a personal, almost intimate object. A symbol of identity. And finely engraved silver knives were given at weddings as gifts of honor. Peeters paints them again and again. And not in any ordinary way. She paints them with astonishing precision. You can see the inscriptions on the blades. And on 3 of these knives, engraved in the steel, her name appears, Clara P. Some historians have speculated that these knives might be a memento of her own marriage. But there are no documents to confirm it. There is no written record that Clara Peeters ever married. So why would she have engraved her name in the steel of a knife? I believe the answer is far more powerful than a simple wedding note. I believe that knife was her professional weapon of defense. In an art market where women were invisible, where you could work your entire life and watch your work circulate without name or credit, Clara Peeters chose metal to claim her intellectual property. To say, this object, this painting, this creation is mine. My name is engraved upon it. And steel does not lie. Furthermore, the oak panels that Peeters used as a ground for her paintings bore official preparation marks from the city of Antwerp. At least 6 of her panels have been identified with these marks. It is no coincidence. It is a chain of provenance. A multiple signature that linked materials, city and artist in an inseparable bond. You will not forget me. That seems to be the message. And 400 years later, here we are, speaking of her. But the most extraordinary visibility strategy of Clara Peeters was not in the knives. It lay in something far more subtle. Far more audacious. It lay in the reflections. Look at any still life by Peeters that contains a gilded silver cup or a burnished pewter jug. Come closer. Look into the convex surfaces, into the polished metal bubbles. And there, in an image the size of a small coin, you will find Clara Peeters. With her headdress. With her lace collar. With her raised shoulders in the fashion of the time. And with her brushes. With her palette. Before her easel. In the very act of painting the picture you are looking at. It is the oldest selfie in the history of Flemish art. And she does not appear just once. In her famous still life with flowers, gilded silver cup, almonds, dried fruits, sweets, bread rolls, wine and pewter jug, from the Prado Museum, dating from 1611, her image appears 4 times in the jug and 3 times in the cup. 7 self-portraits in a single painting. In a still life from 1612, kept in Karlsruhe, she shows herself up to 8 times in the globular surface of a cup. Think about what that means technically. We are talking about tiny images, with optical distortion caused by the curvature of the surface, placed in different positions according to the angle of vision, each one correctly foreshortened. It was a demonstration of optical and geometric mastery that very few painters of her time could have executed. But beyond the technical feat, what strikes me as truly brilliant is the intention behind it. Clara Peeters knew that her paintings would hang in the homes of the most powerful citizens of Antwerp. She knew they would be admired, discussed, talked about. And she knew that, in all likelihood, nobody would name her as the author. Women artists rarely received public credit. So she placed herself inside the work. She became part of the painting. Immovable. Unmistakable. Anyone who looked with sufficient attention, who came close enough, would find her there. With her brushes. With her palette. Saying in silence, "I made this." Historians call this the fiction of the eyewitness. The artist inserts herself into the scene as witness to her own creative power. As a guarantee of authenticity. As a signature that cannot be forged or erased because it is woven into the very painted reality. It is probably the most intelligent strategy of authorship that Western art has ever produced. Clara Peeters was not entirely alone in her struggle. Other women also carved their way through that closed world. But their circumstances were very different, and that difference is fundamental to understanding the scale of what Peeters achieved. The first documented female artist in Flanders was Catharina van Hemessen, who lived between 1527 and 1560. She learned the craft in her father's workshop, the painter Jan Sanders van Hemessen. The key lies there, the father. Access through the family environment. Sophonisba Anguissola, the Italian who was lady-in-waiting to Queen Elizabeth of Valois at the Spanish court, gained access to art through her elevated social status. Her aristocratic family could afford to give her an artistic education that was beyond the reach of most women. Artemisia Gentileschi, possibly the most celebrated painter of the early modern period, was the daughter of the painter Orazio Gentileschi. Again, the father. Lavinia Fontana, Fede Galizia, Elena Recco, Maria Sibylla Marian. All of them extraordinary. All of them pioneers. And in almost every case, there is a father who is a painter, a brother who is a master, a family artistic environment that opened the first door. Clara Peeters did not have that door. There is no record of a painter father. No family workshop. No aristocratic patron to sponsor her. Peeters seems to have come to art through her own effort, possibly studying with external masters such as Osseus Bert, the Flemish pioneer of the still life. They told her, "You can only paint objects." And she replied, "Very well. But I am going to make those objects speak. Make them think. Make them hide secrets. Make them carry the weight of a whole life, a whole professional identity, a whole strategy of survival and of glory." They gave her the still life as a glass wall. And she turned it into her fortress. Transparent. Indestructible. Forever. We have spoken of wealth, of status, of visibility strategy. But in the Baroque, beauty always has a trap. And Clara Peeters knew it perfectly. That trap is called Vanitas. Vanitas is a Latin word meaning vanity. In the context of Baroque art, it is a subgenre of the still life dedicated to reminding the viewer that all material things are ephemeral. That everything passes. That everything dies. And the objects that represent it are unsettling in their beauty. A candle just blown out, with that thread of smoke still rising in a spiral before dispersing. An hourglass whose contents fall without pause and without mercy. Flowers that begin to wilt in the same composition that also shows them in full bloom. Fruit that is beginning to decay. Empty shells, once the home of a living creature and now only their casing. Clara Peeters wove these elements into her still lives with a mastery that made them almost invisible at first glance. She placed them among the luxury objects, between the porcelain and the gold coins. Like whispers. Like gentle warnings. So much wealth, so much status, so much power, and yet. But here something extraordinary occurs. Something that strikes me as the deepest reflection that art can make. In painting the extinguished candle, Clara Peeters stops it. The real candle went out 400 years ago. But in her painting, it still sends that thread of smoke for us. The real flower rotted 4 centuries ago. But on her oak panel, it still opens its petals with the perfection of the first day. Art defeats death. It does not deny it. It portrays it. And by portraying it, it transforms it into something permanent. This is Clara Peeters' ultimate victory. She did not only make herself visible in the reflections of her gilded cups. She did not only engrave her name in the steel of her knives. She did something more radical. She stopped time. And she stopped it forever. Today, technology allows us to enter Clara Peeters' studio as was never before possible. We can digitally reconstruct the lateral light that sculpted her tables in Antwerp. We can enlarge her reflections until we see the headdress, the palette, the brushes. We can read the name engraved in the steel with a clarity that no visitor of the 17th century could have imagined. And the Prado Museum, for centuries later, finally gave her what she deserved, her first solo exhibition. The first dedicated to a female painter in the entire history of the museum. Clara Peeters did not only paint still lives. She painted her right to be remembered. She painted her own existence in every reflection of every gilded cup. And today her voice is no longer a hidden whisper. It is a cry of mastery that resounds through the halls of the Prado and in every image her work has inspired. If this journey into the heart of the Baroque has awakened something in you, there is a very simple way to help us keep creating. A like and a subscription are, for us, what patronage was for the great masters of the 17th century. Without your support, these videos do not exist. With it, we continue decoding together the secrets that art conceals. Until next time.